So it all began with this record. I found it on the pavement outside my grandparents' house in 1983 or 84, something like that. In amongst a very tall pile of clothing, and I rescued clothing and an umbrella and this and a few other things. It sort of intrigued me because it was totally smooth on one side with 2 holes, and then this. Anthem, study in B flat minor, 33 RPM, composed and played by Mirabel Buxton, recorded at the Park House, Tockenham. And according to Jeffrey, they would get these people wandered around with these machines recording business sort of meetings and stuff like that, but you could get them in fairs and they would come and record you play. So they tried that. I don't think they were too impressed, which is why he then bought a reel-to-reel machine and produced this, a cassette, which I then got from my aunt when I was talking about this. Got the cassette from my aunt and said, "Oh, I've got some more of Aunt Mirry's stuff here, you should have a listen to it." And there are different takes. It goes Carolate, Resignation, Reverie, Sunrise first performance, Sunrise second performance, Consolation C piece, etc. And this I put on my record player. It's not a good noise. Well, more to the point, I didn't think it was a good noise back then. Now I think it's quite cool. Very cool. Anyway, so then I played the cassette. And this was a much clearer recording. Quite impressive, really. I like the fact you can hear her sort of pressing the pedals and stuff. And so I began speaking to bizarrely, all my uncles and aunts were alive. My mother, and they would tell me things about her, about Aunt Mirry, about how jolly she was, about how she was kept at home to look after her parents, and then a friend sent her an advert in a newspaper saying, oh, well, applying for a job as a carer, which she took and sort of got away from her parents and moved to this enormous house called Tockenham, in Tockenham, where this elderly couple, he was kind of 80, she may have been older actually, Mirry was 50, but there was an elderly lady who was pretty ill, I think. She died, and then the very old man sort of asked her to marry him, which she did, and then she cared for him for the rest of his life, which was about 8 or 10 years, and he kept going into comas towards the end. And then for the last sort of 15 years of her life, she had a little cottage on the estate. A nephew took over or something, and they let her live in this house, in this cottage. And Geoffrey would go up and record. He was a young man at sort of university. He would go and record and take photographs and Super 8s, and it was, yeah, it was all really, I think, a lovely time. They had a lovely time together for a few years, and then Geoffrey sort of was less and less able to go and see her, I think. Though they still used to meet and go away together to places. But they left us this wonderful music, and I was very lucky to find it. Yeah.
The first I knew about Mirabelle Loma and her music was through Tom, my brother-in-law, up in Edinburgh, and we've known each other for many, many years, 20 years. And when lockdown happened in 2020, with the strange environment that created, and everyone was stuck in their houses, I contacted Tom with a view just to do some music. I kind of emailed him or rang him up, I can't remember, and said, we're going to be stuck in our houses for the next few months. Let's do some music together. One day Tom suddenly mentioned that he had some recordings of his Aunt Mirry, tape recordings from the 50s of her playing her own kind of music. And as someone like me, it was just kind of I just kind of pounced on the idea. That's a fantastic idea. Let's do something with these recordings. And Mirabelle's recordings came kind of perfectly packaged for us. She'd written and recorded maybe 12 or 13 tracks, and she'd given them all names, they all had titles, and it seemed the obvious thing to do was to take each individual track, each individual piece of music with its own title, and just to rework each one individually in our own style, and just put our own personality in there. He was up in Edinburgh and I was in London, and we just took a piece of music and just experimented and just took random loops, almost kind of just taking random bars and just looping them and seeing what happened. At the first time I took a piece of one of her compositions called Anthem, and just looped about 4 bars of it, and then started to play the guitar over the top of it, and it just instantly felt really magical. It was like I just felt like you were playing music with someone who died, 40 years ago in the mid-80s, and I was still making music with them somehow, or kind of communicating with their spirits. It just felt very moving and powerful. So I recorded it and sent it to Tom, and he added some stuff and sent it back, and we passed these bits of recordings to and fro. And at some point, after we'd been working on it for a month or so, I still hadn't seen a picture of what Mirry looked like. I don't think Tom had either. I mean, he vaguely remembers meeting him when he was a very small child. And he contacted Jeffrey, who'd recorded the piano pieces, the tapes that we've been working from. Jeffrey was Tom's uncle, and he contacted him to just try and just to ask if he had any photographs of Mirry more than anything, and just to get a bit of a background about Mirry's life, Mirry's upbringing, and but in one of his conversations with Jeffrey, it became apparent that he had not only photographs but cinefilm and three-dimensional stereoscopic slides of Mirry, which was just like an absolute godsend. It was just to have all this footage of someone from the 1950s was unbelievable. I mean, it was just our wildest dreams had come true. I mean, we thought we just had a crackly old recordings and a tape, but we had 2 or 3 years of her life encapsulated in photographs and moving images, and we could go and see her walking around. We could see her having a fag and see her playing the piano, going on holiday. When we got a few of the compositions together, a good body of work together, I'd sent it to a good friend, Kirsteen McNish, just to see what she thought of it, really. I mean, we've been working on it for about 3 or 4 months, not really knowing what it was or what it could be, but we were just experimenting with Mirry's music, and I just needed an independent person's view on what it sounded like. And obviously, I'd known Kirsteen for quite a few years from shows she'd had put on for the Magnetic North, and I'd really trusted her opinion. And she just seemed to be. She heard them and heard a bit about Mirry's story, and was just completely inspired by it and overtaken by it. I mean, just she really helped us kind of bring the project out into the world. Otherwise, we'd still be kind of tinkering in our bedrooms now, I think, if we hadn't actually approached Kirsteen and got her help. I mean, to find this kind of time capsule of footage and recordings of someone's life is so rare. I mean, obviously since the advent of mobile phones, it's become, everyone almost has this archive now, but to have an archive of someone from the 50s and early 60s, and from this bygone time, and to have their music as well, and I mean, it was just such a wonderfully serendipitous thing that just landed in our laps. It does make you wonder whether there's other forces at work that kind of, whether it was all Mirry's idea and we're just her vessels.
I think the recording was done in about, I think 1960. In fact, just about 60 years ago. It was quite sort of tricky to do because we had to set up the equipment and then sort of arrange the microphones and all that sort of thing. But in the end, I think it was quite a successful recording, and Aunt Mary loved sort of listening to it because she said that the recordings helped her to sort of improve her music. But I think it was the only one I ever made, as far as because after that, you see, I have a little storeroom, and all the things that I had stored there all sort of disappeared. I think that included most of the tapes, if not all of the tapes. Sad, because I played a lot of things. Her mother played the piano extremely well. She's a very good pianist. The sad thing about of her mother is that Aunt Mirry's father didn't like music. She said it made him depressed. And so, in the end, she sort of gave up playing the piano. It's very tragic because playing the piano was her great hobby. And yet, I can't sort of discourage it. Well, Mirry, I think, was mainly taught by her mother, but Mirry has a sort of inborn talent. I think it's a good idea because it will sort of help to preserve, you see, Aunt Mirry's memory. Please keep it, because it's the only 78 RPM record ever made of Aunt Mirry's music. Well, good idea.
Give me a melody to linger in my heart, and a break from crooners driving me to tears. Give me an English voice to make the rafters ring, not a Yankee I'm sorry, Yankee croaking everything. Can I do it again? Give me a melody to linger in my ears, and a break from crooners driving me to tears. Give me an English voice to make the rafters ring, not a Yankee crooning everything. One more, did so badly. You spoiled it. I was going on to the chorus. Well, I'll begin again. Now don't laugh. Will you? Oh, no, please don't. Now, do be good.